Yeah, that's what we talked about. We did.
Walter.
Yes.
Welcome.
Nice.
Walker. Walker.
You come in whatever you want.
Walker, not Walter. Walker.
I see.
Still welcome, whatever his name is.
Yeah, either way. Doesn't matter to me. Yeah, no, I'm good. Thank you.
This was wonderfully chaotic.
Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishna. Well, a good evening, dear friends. Wonderful to meet some new friends and to see many old friends. And tonight we're going to talk about, the talk is titled The Spiritual Habit. We're going to talk about the power of habits in our spiritual life. What do I mean exactly? Well, Vedanta teaches us, as I always love to remind myself and ourselves at the beginning of a talk, that Vedanta tells us that this world is not what it seems, and we are not who we think we are. We are, Vedanta makes the amazing claim, the remarkable claim, that we are not bodies, that our true nature is deathless, our true nature is birthless, of the nature of undivided consciousness and infinite bliss. That is the true nature of reality, the true nature of our own beings. That this world is a manifestation also of that infinite reality. We call it Sat Chit Ananda, existence itself, consciousness and bliss. But we might also call it Allah, or God, or Christ consciousness, or Krishna consciousness, or Buddha nature, whatever we call it, by whatever name, that reality is the abiding truth of who we are. That Vedanta tells us, we know that. And moreover, that it is possible to realize it. We are not aware of it, most of us, most of the time. We can realize it. But how? How? For that, some spiritual practice is required, is recommended. The teachers tell us, do sadhana, do spiritual practice. And what form does that spiritual practice take? What is that spiritual practice? Today I want to talk about habits and how habits can help us in our spiritual life. How we can take this idea of sadhana, of spiritual practice, and make it, ingrain it, carve it deeply on our inner mind so that it becomes a habit, so that our seeking is not something that we do just now and then, but that our seeking becomes something we do all the time. So, it's easy for us to forget, actually, because we think that we are free agents and conscious beings all the time. It's easy to forget that our lives are actually governed, for the most part, in large part, they are governed by our habits. And that we have hundreds, perhaps thousands of habits that unfold, as it were, during the course of the day, from the moment we get up until the time we go to sleep. For instance, how do we brush our teeth every day? I hope we all brush our teeth every day. How do we brush our teeth? Probably in the same way. I brush my teeth in the same way. I never really thought about it until I started noticing it. But I always start in the top right. And I go around and then go to the inside, and then from the bottom right to the left, and then on the inside, finished. I always do it the same way. Why? It's not that tomorrow I think, well, let me try on the left side, starting on the left side today. Nobody does that. We do it in the same way every day. And similarly, how we get up, how we bathe, how we get dressed, the route we take when we go to school or to work, how we interact with others, how we use these devices that most of us have in our pockets or on our belts or in our purses. Even mentally, we have many thought routines which are habitual. They unfold in the same way in response to a certain cues. And on the whole, this is actually good because it saves mental power. As I suggest, we don't have to decide how we're going to brush our teeth every day, we just do it. We don't have to decide how we're going to take a shower, we just do it. And driving is a perfect example. If you think about it, it's incredible. We can pilot this tremendous mass of steel and glass and rubber and plastic and highly inflammable fuel down a concrete freeway at 60 or 70 miles an hour and navigate a freeway interchange with other cars changing lanes and all the while having a conversation with the passenger next to us. Just think about that. That's amazing. How do we do it? Because much of what driving is automatic. We have learned it so it becomes habit. We don't have to think about it. So we're driving along, talking away, and we notice that the brake lights come on the car in front of us. What happens? We don't have to think about it. We don't have to say, oh, those lights have come on. Oh, brake lights. The car in front of me is stopping. I better slow down. We don't have to think about that. It goes automatically. Foot goes off the accelerator and moves over to the brake, right? Automatically. That's a kind of a habit. Very helpful. When we're going to change lanes, what do? We check the mirror, turn on the signal, look over the shoulder, and move over. We don't have to think that through. When we're first learning it, we have to think it through. So this is obviously how habits can be helpful. Not all habits are helpful, as we know. This is one of the worst ones we can think of, the smoking habit. We reach unconsciously for a cigarette. We don't even realize we're doing it, the smokers say. And it just goes automatically. And then, or this is the new habit. You recognize this one? Scrolling. Doom scrolling, they call it. You go scroll, next. I've seen it in the airport where somebody's going and there's another little video comes up, and depending on whether it interests the person, they might watch for 1 second, next, and then one that holds their attention for maybe 5 or 10 seconds, and then boom, next. And so it goes on, but it goes on and on and on. So there's also habit going on and on and on. So, nice example of a mental habit, driver cuts us off on the freeway. And immediately, some unkind word comes to our lips. We don't even think about it. It's just like, oh, you. Or maybe we display some unkind mudra. Without even thinking about it. People do that. These are mental habits, right? Unhelpful mental habits. So what is a habit? A habit, the scientists who study this stuff, they say that habits emerge because the brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort. The brain wants to save effort, save its energy for other things. So it typically starts as a conscious action, and by repeating it, it becomes automatic. It's like driving. Say, when you first learn driving, mom or dad typically, or a driving instructor maybe, is sitting, or older sibling is sitting next to you and says, okay, now you're gonna move into the left lane. What are you gonna do? Turn on your signal, and you're moving. Okay, yeah. Now check your mirror. Okay, and now look over your shoulder. Okay, now you can move over. Okay, now turn your turn signal back off. Okay, so Your driving teacher might have to tell you that, talk you through that action 10 or 20 times in the course of several classes. You keep reminding you, do that, do that. Gradually it becomes automatic. Now we've all internalized that, and this is a kind of habit. What is a habit? They call it a habit loop. A loop which unfolds, as it were, automatically. A series of events which make up the habit. And they have there are 4 parts to this habit loop. First, there's a cue. Okay, I want to change the lane. The cue is, well, the traffic is flowing better in the right lane. It's moving. I'm stopped here and the traffic's moving better in the right. Or I need to make a right turn next block. Let me shift to the right lane. That could be the cue. And then there's a craving. What happens is the routine unfolds, and then there's a reward to the routine. And there's also a craving for that reward. So when the cue comes, then a craving comes for the reward of the routine. Then the routine unfolds, and you get the reward. A simple example would be the cigarette, right? You see an ashtray, and that's a cue, and you think, it'd be great to have a smoke right now. And unconsciously, you reach for the cigarette, you smoke the cigarette, the reward, you had enjoyed the pleasure of smoking the cigarette. So the cue is, I need to make a right turn up ahead. So the craving is, I want to get to my destination. I go through the habit, turn on the turn signal, move the thing. The reward, I'm getting to my destination. So habits are like this. They've done tests with animals. It sounds a little bit cruel, but not that cruel. They've tested monkeys, and they wire their brains with electrodes so they can see which parts of the brains is firing when they're doing things. And then they show them a picture on the monkey is trained that if it sees a form come on a TV screen and it presses the lever, it gets a drop of juice from a tube, and it comes and they can enjoy that taste of juice. So the monkeys, apparently they love whatever juice they're being fed, and so every time the form comes on and they press the lever, they get the juice. If there's no form and they press the lever, no juice. So they learn this, and monkeys will spend hours looking at that screen, waiting for that form, trying to get that drop of juice. And the interesting thing about the brain activity, at first, when they get the drop of juice, the pleasure center in the brain lights up. And then, so it does the habit and it gets the pleasure. After they've learned the habit fully, as soon as they get the stimulus, as soon as they see that shape, the pleasure center lights up before the juice even comes. Very interesting. The pleasure of the reward is coming before even it has been received. Then, if you don't give the juice, they get angry. They get very angry if they don't get the juice. So in a sense, actually, we human beings are all looking for the juice. Our whole lives long, we're looking for the juice. That little taste of pleasure that our habits, this scrolling thing, that's also looking for the juice, a little dopamine hit from some titillating or scary little video that is showing. We're all like monkeys trying to get that juice. So these habit routines can also be. Here's an example of a habit routine from a book that is mental, kind of a mental. My wife or my spouse suggests that you're gaining weight. You should really lose weight. And the routine is I get angry, and then In front of my spouse, I eat a brownie. And what's the reward here? The reward is a kind of adrenaline rush from the anger and the satisfaction of having asserted my individuality. You're not going to push me. You're not going to tell me what to do. Okay, this is also a kind of habit. So if we think about it, then how much of our lives is actually consciously lived, and how much of it is just unconscious routines that we're going through? So it's a sobering thought to think that so much of our life is actually governed by these habits. Hence, it follows that the formation of good habits is tremendously important for our life, because our whole life most of our life is actually just habits unfolding, and these routines unfolding. Swami Vivekananda lays tremendous emphasis for anybody to have a good life, and especially for spiritual life, on one thing. What is that? Character. He emphasizes the development of our character. That's more important than what particular spiritual practices we are doing, or how much we give in charity, or all these things. Actually, he emphasizes character. Why? Let me read what he says. He says, every work that we do, every movement of the body, every thought that we think leaves an impression on the mind stuff. This is what we call a samskara. Everything we say, we think, we do, leaves an impression on the mind stuff. And then he goes on to say, even when such impressions are not obvious on the surface, they are sufficiently strong to work beneath the surface subconsciously. What we are every moment is determined by the sum total of these impressions in the mind. What I am just at this moment is the effect of the sum total of all the impressions of my past life. This is really what is meant by character. So, can you see how our character is formed by repeated thoughts and actions? They leave these samskaras, these tendencies to be repeated in our minds. It's like I sometimes think of it as like the old vinyl records, which most of us are old enough to, and I guess they're making a comeback, so most of us know what they are, right? The vinyl record and the groove in the record and the needle, and the needle follows the groove, and it always follows the groove unless there's a scratch in the record, and then it skips over, or it repeats, or something like that. And our minds are kind of like that. We develop these grooves, and the easiest thing is just to follow that groove, or like an old dirt road with ruts in it. And if you drive your car over that road, the wheels are going to go in the ruts, and you can't steer out of the ruts. It just goes in the ruts. So it's tremendous. Where are those ruts? Are they going in a good direction? Are they going in a harmful direction? So Vivekananda says, if good impressions prevail in our mind stuff, we'll be good people. And if bad impressions prevail, we'll be bad people. We can't help it. By the force of these impressions, we're carried forward. So I'd like to introduce a very helpful aphorism, we can call it, a saying, which is unsourced. I searched to find the source of it, and it looks like it's developed in the 1850s in America, in different Christian literature, and it uses the theme of sowing and reaping, like we have in the Bible, as ye sow, so shall ye reap. It's very interesting. It goes like this. So, and perhaps some of you have heard this. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. So a character reap a destiny. You can see how it's right in line with what we've been talking about. Our thoughts precede actions. So we depending on what we think, it determines our actions. But actions quickly become habits. So as we sow an action, it becomes a habit. And then our character is nothing but the accumulation of all the habits that we have. All the mental habits and the physical habits determine our character. And our life, the outcome of our life, rests on our character. So sow the character and reap a destiny. It's worth memorizing this. Let me say it once more. Sow a thought, reap an action. Sow an action, reap a habit. Sow a habit, reap a character. Sow a character, reap a destiny. I first read this in a book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But I thought maybe he came up with it, obviously, and it's been attributed to, I think, to Thoreau and to other. You'll find all kinds of attributions on the internet, but the final analysis is nobody knows where it came from. So, our character is just the collection of our habits, our samskaras, the collection of all the tendencies within us. So Swami Vivekananda points out in regard to this, he says, it is said habit is second nature, because we do it without thinking. Habit is second nature. And then he says, it is first nature also, and the whole nature of a person. Everything that we are is the result of habit. And he gives us a wonderful point. That gives us consolation, because if it is only habit, we can make and unmake it at any time. Of course, so the idea is habits can be changed. Though we all know that come January 10 or so, the pledges we have made to reform our habits, most of them have failed. So it's not that it's easy. He's not saying it's easy, but it's possible. We can reform habits. We can reform habits. So we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that in a moment. Swamiji himself puts it this way: the only remedy for bad habits is counter habits. Counter habits. And we'll get more into this, but it's very difficult to simply give up a habit, to stop a habit. You have to replace it with another better habit. So that's why Swamiji says, the only remedy for bad habits is counter habits. All the bad habits that have left their impressions are to be controlled by good habits. And then he gives that kind of encouragement he's so well known for. Go on, doing good, thinking holy thoughts continuously. That is the only way to suppress base impressions. And never say any person is hopeless, because he or she only represents a character, a bundle of habits, which can be checked by new and better ones. And then he repeats, character is repeated habits, and repeated habits alone can reform character. So let's talk a little bit about choosing our habits, and say if we want to add a habit to our life, a habit that we don't have, like maybe meditating every day. There are a few things researchers have found. First, they find most people fail, as we know, come January 10th. But that's not because they don't have any willpower. It's because they don't understand the science behind habits like this. There's a writer named B.J. Fogg who points out very clearly that a behavior, to establish a new behavior, a new habit, it needs 3 things. It needs a prompt, the new behavior needs a prompt, something to prompt us to do it. We need to have the ability to do it, and we need the motivation to do it. So we need a prompt, we need the ability, and the motivation. So take something like to add a new habit, we need to balance on the one hand, our ability and the motivation. So if we really want something, if our motivation is very strong, then even if our ability is not that good, we'll somehow manage to do it. Or if our ability is very good, then even if we don't want it all that much, but it's going to be really easy for us, probably we can do it. But oftentimes, there's a mismatch. And though our ability, our motivation is not that high, and our ability is not that strong, and so we fail. So the easiest way to start a new habit is to link it with an already existing habit. To link it. So say we want to start meditating in the morning. Link it to an already existing habit. Okay, after I finish after I finish my shower, I will meditate. So there's already a habit in the morning. I shower every morning. Or some people shower at night, I know. But whatever habit I have, or after I get up in the morning and wash my face, or whatever it is, I'm going to meditate. So that's how we link a new habit to an already existing habit. I already do that, and I've just added something to it. So that's one thing that helps a lot. And we need to be very specific. So if we're going to say meditate in the morning, it's be very specific. I'm going to go to my meditation room and sit on my meditation chair, or if I don't have a room, there's maybe a little corner where I have a little altar set up, or a flower vase, or some place where I go to meditate. I'm going to go to the same place and sit in the chair and meditate for X number of minutes. And we can write it down to make it, this is the thing. Now, here's the interesting thing. Fogg suggests, start small. Start very small. And he gives the example of a habit that most of us, perhaps almost all of us, know that we all should do, and that very few of us actually do. And that is flossing our teeth. We know our dental hygienist, if we've ever had our teeth cleaned, the dental hygienist say, do you floss every day? And you're like, well, sometimes. You really should do it every day. It's really good for your gums. You really need to do it every day. And you say, yeah, okay, I'll try. And for a couple of days you do it, and it's so much trouble. So how do we start? He gives this, right, you make the commitment to start the new habit of tooth flossing. Okay, very specific. The cue is, I put my toothbrush down. When I put my toothbrush down, I will draw out a length of floss. This is Fogg's suggestion. And floss one tooth. One tooth. Not enough. I mean, all those teeth, there's 30 teeth. That's a lot of teeth to floss. But if I'm just going to floss one tooth, that's where the habit starts. After I brush my teeth, after I put my toothbrush down, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to take out a length of dental floss and floss one tooth. And then, this is a very important part. Remember we talked in the beginning about how a habit has a reward. You have to give yourself a reward. Good job. You flossed a tooth. Yes, this is how you start the habit of flossing. Gradually, okay, I've done one, I can add one more. You add one more, and gradually you find that actually it doesn't take that long to do all of them as you get good at it. So that's how we start a habit. I admit I have the habit of flossing my teeth, and because it's such a habit, my job doesn't feel done until I've flossed. So I've brushed my teeth, and I feel like, well, I've got to get between the teeth in order to feel like the mouth is totally clean, and I'll do it, and then I'll get that reward of, mouth is totally clean, it's great. great feeling.
Get a candy or chocolate.
What? Better candy than chocolate?
They could get a candy as a reward, you see.
Oh, get a reward. No, no. Just to feel. As a reward, yeah. With one dentist, I remember they gave out lollipops.
Yeah,
As a
the
reward.
children.
Yeah, but that's an investment for him.
Yeah.
Good point.
So long as you got your teeth in your mouth, he has got money in the bank.
Right. So, for this practice of starting a meditation practice, there's a Swami, a friend of mine, who told us that when he started meditating, he wanted to meditate. He wanted to meditate every day, but he knew it was gonna be hard. So he resolved, I'm going to meditate every day for 3 minutes. Okay? 3 minutes. Only 3 minutes. What? Come on, that's nothing. So I can do that. So he started his meditation practice. He knew if he did any more than that, he probably wasn't, it was going to be too much. It was going to be overwhelming. At the beginning, 3 minutes is actually a long time. When we first start meditating, to sit still for 3 whole minutes and not do anything or look at anything or read anything or talk to anybody, that's a pretty long time. Now, if those who are seasoned meditators, it goes by like that. But at the beginning, it's a long time. So this is how, say we were going to add the meditation habit in the morning. Okay, we have some motivation for it, but maybe our motivation is not that strong. Then let's not bite off more than we can chew. Let's now in Vedanta spiritual life, we have this goal, this reward presented to us. I talked about it right at the beginning. Our true nature is infinite bliss, and when we realize it, we realize infinite bliss. Our suffering comes to an end, and God realization brings us eternal freedom. Well, it's all well and good, but how to do that? It's a lifelong project. It might be a lives long project, right? Though it can happen right now, it can happen in a flash. Right now we can realize, but we don't. It takes, for most of us, takes tremendous work. Don't we have to meditate for many years in order for that to happen? Well, maybe. I don't think it's for me. That's not a realistic motivation for starting a meditation practice. It's not. It's because if the goal seems unattainable, it won't help us. It won't be real to us. We need a real goal, something we can actually attain. And what in management they call this kind of overarching goal, this goal of God realization, they call it a stretch goal, right? Yeah, those of you in management, you're familiar with this idea of stretch goal. You have this overall idea of stretch goal, but that doesn't inspire your daily actions. It's too big. It's too much in the future. We also need attainable goals, something that actually I can attain, if not today, then in the foreseeable future, in the coming weeks or the coming months. And they talk about SMART goals. It's an acronym, S-M-A-R-T, SMART. Half of you people are in management, so you know more about it than I do. Well, I read a book about it, but it seems to apply here. SMART means specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound. So, specific, I'm going to meditate every morning after brushing my teeth. Measurable, I'm going to do it for 3 minutes. Actionable, well, yes, I'm actually going to do it. It's relevant, well, because I want to get a peace of mind in my life. I want to get some peace of mind. And time-bound, I suppose that means we can add something like, I'm going to do it for 3 months. I'm going to do it for 3 months, and after 3 months, we'll see, I can raise it to 5 minutes. Or I'm going to do it for 2 weeks, and after that, every week I'm going to add a minute, something like that. So it's measured by time. So this is how we add a habit. want to add? The more our motivation, one of the devotees who's been coming here told us yesterday how she has begun getting up early in the morning, and that this was the hardest thing she has ever done in her life. At first it was tremendous struggle. So what it tells me is that she has very strong motivation, because it was a very difficult habit to establish. To get up at 4 in the morning is, for those of us who are used to getting up at 8 or even at 6, to cut 2 hours off of the night is very difficult. But she did it. She established the new habit. Why? Because she had a very strong motivation to do it. So when that's why Sri Ramakrishna comes back again and again to this, that what's the most essential ingredient in spiritual life?
Intense desire.
You have to want it. You have to want spiritual life. You have to want God. We long for God. When that longing comes, then everything falls into place. So what about changing a habit? So here we have to identify the habit, we identify the routine, we identify the cue, and we identify the reward. And then we substitute a new routine. So say I have a habit of, after coming home from work, I kick off my shoes, go to the fridge, grab a can of soda, go to the TV, turn it on, and watch reruns or whatever while drinking soda pop and chips, eating chips. Okay. The routine is easy to understand. Is drinking soda pop and chips while watching, consuming junk food while consuming junk food through my mouth while also consuming junk food through my eyes. And the cue is coming home from work. And what's the reward? Relaxation. I had a stressful day. I want to relax. I just want to relax and do something mindless and enjoy, get a little pleasure from these things. And that's the reward. So what do? The thing about changing a bad habit is that the habit routine is engraved in our minds, and you can never get rid of it. It's like riding a bike. They say, oh, you never forget how to ride a bike? Maybe you haven't ridden a bike for 20 years, and then you go to a friend's house and he has an extra bike. You say, hey, let's go for a bike ride. I haven't ridden for 20 years. You get on that thing, turns out you still remember how to ride a bike. You can still do it. Why? Because all the actions that are required for riding a bike, the way that you balance it and understand how to turn and lean and all that, it's still wired in. So you can't just get rid of it. You have to substitute a new habit. As Swami Vivekananda said in the beginning, you have to replace the habit with a different habit, which ideally gives you the same or even a better reward. So you get that reward that the old habit gave, but you're getting a better reward, and it's a different habit. So you come home from work, and you kick off your shoes, and what do? Well, if you want to lose a little weight, you could keep your walking shoes right by the door. Okay? So this is also a cue. You come home, you kick off your shoes, and you see your walking shoes there, and say, oh yeah. You put on your walking shoes, and you go a walk down to the corner and back. Take a little walk. And then you go watch TV. But at least you've done it, you've started small. You've taken a little walk. And maybe, gradually, that walk, you can lengthen that walk and start to get a little exercise. And we know that exercise has a wonderful benefit of relaxation. It releases stress. Now, for someone who is a seeker who wants to increase our thought of God and all of that, we can have a different routine. We kick off our shoes. We could keep a prayer shawl by the door. These environmental cues help a lot, by the way. As we know, anyone who's tried to quit smoking knows when you're going to quit smoking, what do? You remove all the ashtrays from the house. And if you're really serious about it, you throw them away. If you're not quite 100% committed and you hide them in a drawer, probably that person is not going to succeed. You got it. You need that motivation. You throw away all the ashtrays, you throw away all the cigarettes, you throw away all the lighters, anything that reminds you. Maybe matchsticks remind you, you throw them out. How are you going to light the candles? Well, you get something else that you didn't use for lighting cigarettes to light the candles, so that you don't have those cues that remind you. And you put in new cues. So you put a prayer shawl by the door. So the new habit could be, I come home, kick off my shoes, I take the prayer shawl, lay it on my shoulder, I go to my prayer nook or my prayer room, and I spend 2 minutes in prayer, saying maybe, offering my day's work to the Lord. Oh Lord, I offer whatever I have done today, may you accept it as my offering, may my motivation be to express your glory through everything I do, and bow down. Bus, enough, don't bite off more than you can chew. But see, what happens, in that little communion, you've already started to relax. That tension that you wanted to get rid of by drinking soda and eating chips, already starting to dissipate. So gradually, maybe then there's something else that you can do. After that, you can go to the fridge and pour yourself a glass of milk. Or if you want to get rid of the soda habit, don't keep soda in the fridge. There was a devotee in Hollywood. I talked about this in Hollywood, and afterwards he came up and he confided in me. I can tell because we don't know who he is here. For about a year during the pandemic, he was coming every night to our Hollywood temple for our evening prayer. And very few people were coming. He was coming every night. And he would sit in the back and he would stay there. He told me he kicked a drinking habit. Every night he was drinking, and he realized he didn't want to do that. So he substituted a different routine. What was it? Get in his car, drive to the Vedanta Society, stay for the evening prayer, and come back. So that was really, really touching to me, really moving how how our temple and our evening prayer helped him to kick a drinking habit. So as far as spiritualizing our life, it occurs to me that there are a number of different little habits that we can add in our life, which don't add much difficulty to us. One, we can, and many of us do this. We have maybe some pictures or something that we put in different places in our homes to remind us of our ideal. We can, for instance, in our monasteries, we don't think of starting a meal without chanting our meal chant. It never occurs to us to eat without chanting it because it's such an ingrained habit. We always do it. So that's a little habit that we do as a community. But when I'm here alone, I also do it. And if no one's here and I'm having a breakfast and no one is here, usually I have breakfast. If I have breakfast, I have it alone. I also do it because it's such an ingrained habit. Oh, sitting for food? Oh, we chant. And it's just a little reminder. Every day we do that. We can do things like japa, the repeating our mantra. We can decide that while I'm doing X, I'm going to do my mantra. Like doing dishes is a perfect time for that. Perfect example. Because doing dishes, we don't have to think much about how to wash dishes. It's a well-formed habit. We can expand the habit to chant the mantra while doing dishes. Instead of talking with somebody or listening to the radio while doing dishes, some people may do that. We can try chanting our mantra while doing the dishes. Wonderful. There's Charles Duhigg wrote a book called The Power of Habit, and he actually had a habit that he managed to kick But it took a lot of investigation, and it's kind of interesting to see how far he went in order to keep this habit. The bad habit was every day, every afternoon, he would get up from his desk at the New York Times, where he was working in the newsroom, and walk down to the cafeteria and have himself a chocolate chip cookie. And of course, talk with his friends down there, or whatever. And he started gaining weight. He gained 8 pounds. And his wife started commenting on it. So he thought, I'm going to stop. I don't need to do this. I don't need to eat a chocolate chip cookie. And then he was very surprised to find that he couldn't stop. He wanted to stop, but he couldn't. Somehow he was just driven to go down and get that. So he developed a process. He was writing about habits, and he wrote a whole book, of course, on habits. And so this was the things that he had to do. He had to identify, the key point was figuring out what the reward was. What was the reward for him for eating that chocolate chip cookie? He could identify the routine, going down to eat the chocolate chip cookie, and the cue seemed to be, well, sometime in the afternoon, it would just suddenly happen. And so he experimented with rewards. So a reward satisfies a craving. We have a craving in the habit, and so what is that craving? So he first thought, well, maybe I'm hungry. So if he is hungry, then eating an apple or some other granola, something else with low-calorie snack would give the same reward. But it didn't work. He'd have an apple, and then half an hour later, he'd be up going for that chocolate chip cookie. Okay, so it wasn't, he wasn't hungry. Maybe he was tired. Then presumably a cup of coffee would help. No, he still needed the chocolate chip cookie. Maybe he needed a break from work, so he tried taking a walk around the block. Nope, he went for the chocolate chip cookie. Finally, he figured out what he wanted was some social interaction. Because when he would go down there for the chocolate chip cookie, some of his coworkers would also be there, and while eating it, they would chit-chat and all that. So he developed a plan. Go for 10 minutes to a coworker's desk and chat. And it worked. He was able to kick the habit when he finally identified what the actual craving was for. The craving was not for sugar. The craving was not for food. The craving was not for a rest or relax. The craving was for social interaction. So it's interesting how these things get tangled up with each other, and how he actually had to do quite a bit of work to figure out what the craving was, to pinpoint it, and to experiment, and to make a journal. He would write down, oh, when did I get the craving, and what did I do? And so he was very careful about this. So his plan was every afternoon at 3:30 p.m. he set a little alarm, and when the alarm went, he would go to a coworker and chit-chat. Within a week or two, he didn't need the alarm. He just automatically would do that in the afternoon. He would spend a little time chit-chatting. So it's really a very clever way of dealing with a bad habit. However, I wasn't sure whether to share it even, because it's a little bit unsatisfying, because it seems so prosaic. It seems like, gosh, there's no higher goal. Just stop eating a chocolate chip cookie. If he was a meditator, wouldn't he have been able to do it without all this stuff? Wouldn't he have been able to have a deeper insight into his own nature? And couldn't he have consciously met that afternoon urge for the chocolate chip cookie and effectively chosen a different path? So from the Vedantic perspective, we want to really add to all our habits, to our whole life. We want to keep in mind that stretch goal, but maybe not only that stretch goal of God realization, but the more proximate and attainable goal of a more peaceful mind, a less stressful life, a more loving life, being able to feel more deeply connected to others, feel more connected to God, feel more connected to nature, a life that is more in harmony with our stretch goal. And our stretch goal may be very high, and our actual life may not be matching. So these kinds of proximate goals. So this is where we add Shraddha to the equation. Shraddha is often translated as faith. It really means a faith, a deep conviction in the teachings of the teacher, of the scriptures, of Vedanta, of all the teachers, really all the spiritual teachers in all the traditions of the world, that the divine is real and the divine is knowable, and that that's our highest goal. And as that conviction grows strong, it also provides motivation for reforming our life. Shraddha is that faith which directs our whole life, which orients our whole life towards the divine, so that our whole life is God-oriented. So still, this Duhig's formula, when we add that, Duhig's formula of identifying the routine and the craving and all that, say let's take an example of a troublesome thought loop that we're faced with. Maybe our boss said something to us a month ago at work, and we can't let it go. And every time we see our boss, we remember that, and we think, how my boss could have said that? What I should have told her such and such, or I should quit, or some angry loop goes in there, and it keeps, and we can't let it go. We can't let it go. Okay. Well, we take these steps, identify the routine. Okay, mentally hating my boss. The cue. Maybe it's seeing my boss, or maybe we're not sure what the cue is. We remember it, and the routine, of course, the routine, the cue, and the reward. The reward, in these cases, it's often some kind of vicarious vengeance, like imagining that quitting. Take this job and shove it. Remember that one? There was a song. Probably it was a country western song. This is North Carolina, y'all should know this stuff. Take this job and shove it. Yeah, it was a very popular song because people get frustrated with their jobs and they'd love to say that. They can't, because we need our jobs, but they'd love to just say, you can take this job and shove. So that's the reward is a kind of vengeance, right? We feel a little better, at least because we've got our revenge, if only mentally. Okay. So we develop a plan. We have to substitute a different routine. So when the cue comes, we remember the boss and we start remembering the injury that was given to us. We substitute a different routine. Maybe it's a prayer. We can memorize a little prayer. Oh Lord, please forgive that guy because he didn't know what he was doing, and may he attain peace and happiness in life. Maybe it's a little prayer like that. And we try to do it sincerely, of course. Not that it's just lip service. We try to sincerely utter this prayer. Now, to the extent we can do this sincerely, we actually find that we're able to start letting this go. And the reward actually becomes more satisfying because it's not a twisted satisfaction of vengeance. It's a genuine letting go. It's a genuine peace. The peace that comes from being able to forgive someone for a harm that they've done. So, of course, if we think about it, we realize that the yoga teachers have already been teaching this for millennia. Only they give a fancy Sanskrit name for it. They call it Pratipaksha Bhavanam, raising an opposing thought. And Swami Vivekananda also hinted at that in that passage I read earlier. If a troublesome thought comes, and as our meditation practice deepens, we start to become aware more quickly of inimical thoughts which take us away from meditation, take us away from mental peace. And we can learn to raise an opposing thought. So if we feel hatred, well, naturally, the opposing thought would be love. If we feel afraid, perhaps the opposing thought would be feeling that we take refuge in God, feeling the divine protection. If we feel angry, the opposing thought would be cultivating a feeling of compassion or forgiveness. So I had a friend, a mentor of mine, before I joined the monastery, who had a beautiful habit. If ever something would come out of her mouth that was negative, she would say, "Oh, cancel that." Or if somebody else would say something like, "Oh, I'll never be able to X, Y, Z." "Oh, cancel that." Because she recognized that simply that kind of defeatist thought expressed in words had a power. That to say something negative, it has a power with it. And so to say, cancel that, was her way of consciously counteracting that, saying, no, I'm not going to think a negative thought. No, you also shouldn't think a negative thought. Yes, you can do it. If you put your mind to it, we can do it. So I appreciate that. Cancel that. Cancel that. Swami Swahananji, those of you who met him know that he had a habit of saying, Hari Om, Hari Om. And when he would say that, I would always feel like he was invoking this ocean of peace and reminding himself of the ever-present reality of infinite, the ocean of infinite consciousness and bliss in which we are all floating. And he would do it regularly, and if he was a little bit upset about something, and even he would get a little bit disturbed, he would say, Hey Ramakrishna, Hari Om, Hari Om. You've heard that, right? Yes. Hey Ramakrishna, oh Lord, oh Ramakrishna, Hari Om, Hari Om. And it was his way of dropping it. There was actually a very humorous incident which happened. I guess we have time to tell the story. If you don't mind, I'll tell this. This is a funny story. Okay, this is Ramakrishna Monastery, Trabuco Canyon, where I joined the monastery. I'd been there just a year or so. I didn't know maybe not even a year, 6 months. I didn't know all the things about how the very senior-most monks of our order are, on the one hand, utterly revered, and also how we have to be very careful in how we serve them. And so Swami Swahanandaji, as those of you who know him know, he was a very senior monk of the order. He was initiated by a disciple of Ramakrishna. And his senior brother disciple, was coming for a visit, Swami Atmastananda. He was a vice president of the Ramakrishna order. That means he is one of the big guns. It's, it's like vice president. If Kamala Harris is coming over, it's literally like that. The vice president, he's big. Okay, so I didn't know all of that. So he's coming to visit, and we were given strict instructions about his diet. And one of the things was he doesn't like anything sour. Don't give him anything sour. No sour foods. He can't take it. Some people have a sensitivity to that, sour food. He was one of those. No sour things, right? Like yogurt or something, curd as we call it. No, don't give him sour. It's got to be sweet. Okay, so these instructions were distributed, and so he comes to the monastery with a big crowd of people, and it's a lot of activity, and people have prepared a fancy meal, Indian-style meal, and he's sitting at the head of the table, and Swami Swahanandaji is sitting next to him, and he's a little nervous that everything should go smoothly. And so he's got a full meal, and then I'm in the kitchen, meanwhile, providing support, like helping, and he has his assistant. And I know that Indians, they like yogurt with their meals, right? They like yogurt. So they eat yogurt after spicy food. The Indians, they eat yogurt. So I asked his attendant, who was helping, who is now also a vice president of the order, but at that time he was the attendant. I said, well, will he like some yogurt? Will he like some curd? Oh, yes. So I took some Trader Joe's non-fat yogurt, put some in a little bowl, and sent it out with the assistant. Now, any of you who know Trader Joe's non-fat yogurt know that it's very sour. But I didn't know about the no sour foods. I hadn't heard that part. I was just providing support in the kitchen, and I sent out the yogurt. So apparently, after he was finishing his meal, and he took a bite of the yogurt, and he said with great displeasure, "Ugh, sour," and he pushed it away. So fast forward after the meal, the Swami has gone for a rest, and Swami Swahananda is walking on the road, and I'm walking with him. And he's saying, but he was told that no sour food. He was given the recipe, because the recipe for sweet curd had been given to Swami Vivekananda. So he was, but I told him that he's sweet. Hey Ramakrishna, Hey Ramakrishna, Hari Om. But this took more than once. Then he was, another 20 seconds there, and he said, but I gave him the recipe. He was given the recipe. He knew that he should prepare the Hey Ramakrishna, Hey Ramakrishna, Hari Om. In the meantime, and I shouldn't be proud of this, but I did not tell him. I was the one who said But what I was really impressed with was that I noticed Swami Swahanandaji, some unkind thoughts were arising in his mind towards another monk, a junior Swami, Swami Vivekananda, who was supposed to make sweet curd. These unkind thoughts were arising in his mind. And then very quickly, he nipped them, he nipped them off in the bud. These thoughts were arising, and then he would say, Hey Ramakrishna, Hey Ramakrishna, Hari Om. And it happened several times. Well, the happy ending is that Swami Vivekananda, in fact, had made the sweet curd according to the recipe, only it was being saved for supper. And it was served to the Swami for supper, and so all's well that ends well. And I never told Swami Swahanandaji, but I will say that Swami Swahanandaji was very intuitive, and he could read minds, and he probably knew. That's how it is. But he never said anything to me about it. But I also got my lesson.
Because you had not tasted Trader Joe's.
No, I knew that it's sour. I didn't know that the Swami couldn't take sour. I didn't know that.
It had more probiotics.
So all's well that ends well. There's other stories about that visit, but we won't go there. So I think we've probably talked long enough, but that's the kind of habit, the thought habit. The point of the story is the thought habit Swami Swahanandaji had. An unkind thought was arising in his mind about Swami Vivekananda, and also some discomfort that the vice president of the order, who was senior to Swami Swahanandaji, and he wanted his visit to be positive. And so he was feeling a little upset that he had had a negative experience. And so to release that, on the one hand, to stop his negative thoughts towards the other Swami, and maybe to just let it go, let the whole thing go, he was using his formula, which was Hey Ramakrishna, Hey Ramakrishna.
Swami Atmasthananji and Maharaj were pretty close. Swami Swahanandaji.
You know what?
Ji.
We asked him, Swami Harinama at that time, we were both brahmacharis, asked him, were you and Swami Swahanandaji, are you friends?
No.
And he looked at us, rivals.
His thoughts about the order and Atmasthananji's thoughts about the order didn't match.
Yeah, they had some different thoughts. So anyhow, let me close here. Tonight we discussed how really the importance of character in spiritual life, and how our character is formed primarily of habits. The aggregate of our habits, our tendencies, form our character, and how habits are essential in life, of course, and in spiritual life, the importance of cultivating good habits, and these kind of habits like Swami Swahanandaji had, Hey Ramakrishna, Hari Om, and how he would go so regularly to the shrine for meditation, how if we can get a meditation habit, how if we can develop a habit of chanting our mantra, all these habits will spiritualize our life. And we talked about the difficulty of forming habits, how one of the important hints from habit science is linking a new habit to a cue, and starting small, and recognizing the importance of the reward for a new habit. Giving yourself a pat on the back, even if mentally, or just to give ourselves a reward for a new habit. And the idea of how do we overcome a bad habit? By substituting a different routine which gives a similar or better reward on the cue. And of course, let us also remember that habits are not the goal. The goal is not even a good character. The goal is to know God, and that we can do, that we will do by the grace of God. And let us strive for that. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mritangamaya Aviravirma Edi Rudrayate Dakshinam Mukham Tena Mam Pahi Nityam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. From the unreal, lead us to the real. From darkness, lead us unto light. From death, lead us to immortality. Reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. Om peace, peace. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. I'll be here one more night, tomorrow night. We'll be talking about the power of devotion, and we'll see